As the world saw for the first time how fast and how hard the virus could hit, relatives of those stuck inside Italy's overcrowded prison system demanded their loved ones in lockup be pardoned. Deadly prison riots have touched off around the world as coronavirus has spread. The US, which incarcerates more of its population than any other country in the world, has seen a surge in cases within its prisons.
It's causing chaos because they're extremely low staffed. You have people that are really contracting the disease. People out there, they don't publicize it, but some people are dying.
I get a call from a mother, that's her son. I get a call literally from a sister crying in tears saying, the person that was sharing this cell with my brother had COVID and they won't test him. They don't have the capabilities of testing him or helping him.
The UN has called for countries to reduce the number of people in detention to help stop the spread. Some have answered, freeing thousands of prisoners, including India, Indonesia, Turkey, and Iran.
So we should be looking to see what other countries have done and also trying to make sure that we act urgently and effectively within timeframes so that we don't see what we're seeing in the US, which is large amounts of incarcerated people dying of COVID-19 within the prison system.
Now 6 prisons in Victoria, along with 2 youth detention centres, are in lockdown after a prison officer at Ravenhall Corrections Centre in Melbourne tested positive.
With the prisons that are in lockdown, obviously no external services are going in. Obviously they're confined to their cells. We understand that they will have some very short exercise time, but that won't be in social groups, and they'll have to maintain social distancing measures as well.
There are calls for those serving short sentences to be released.
Some of those things are using existing legal powers to grant 14 days early release to people in prison who are close to the end of their sentence. 25.5% of men and 40.9% of women who are incarcerated serve terms of imprisonment that are less than 1 month. It's just important to know that they also feel fear in terms of this pandemic and what it means, but that's even more acute because of their lack of control and ability to protect themselves.
Madeline, we covered this right back in March at the beginning of the pandemic. There was a concern, as there are in aged care facilities, where we've got contractors, right, going from one facility to another, that there's going to be a risk. Why are we having this debate now? How has this happened?
Well, heaps of groups way back then called for the government to release Indigenous prisoners because they are more at risk of contracting COVID, and they also already have a lot of pre-existing health conditions. We also know that, sometimes going to prison for Aboriginal people is a death sentence, and this is just exacerbating that a lot more. That's a question for the government, to be honest. Why didn't they act when they could have?
Kerry?
Well, I used to shadow corrective services 20 years ago, so I've got some understanding of how jails work, and the concept of lockdown for an extended period of time is not only detrimental to the prisoners, which clearly it would be, but it's also dangerous for staff, because if you are trying to manage people in a confined environment and the normal way in which they exercise, the normal way in which they interact, the normal way that they have some social engagement with fellow prisoners and indeed with guards, if you take all that away, you create a very difficult position for the governor and the staff within the prison as well, because people do get very antsy, as you can imagine. I mean, people in Victoria are in lockdown at the moment, but at least they're allowed to go outside. They can get some fresh air. They can go for a walk. They can pick up their groceries. If you lock prisons down in that way, you are potentially creating serious difficulties for the management of the prisons.
But that's obvious, and it was obvious in March. So what's the politics of it?
I think that the politics of it was that they thought that they were going to be able to control it.
Okay.
I think that they thought that that wasn't going to get into the jails and that they had measures in place. I do think that what people are asking for now is quite reasonable. I think if you're actually saying, look at people who are short-term prisoners, let's get them out. But I absolutely need to say, and I'm hopefully Sandra would agree with me, you need to test them before you let them leave so that we know that they're okay to go. So it may mean that they're there for a few days extra. But if I was the government in any of these institutions at the moment, I would be testing everybody who's there, who works there, and particularly the people who've come to visit, and then you can think about strategies to release them.